Pardon me, go now. Thank you, and welcome to the podcast. The second Being Real podcast. I'm very excited, as you can see. So I will shortly ask my guests to introduce themselves. Somebody I've met on a number of occasions at conferences and a range of other. You were on a previous podcast, weren't you, as well? So
I was.
yeah, you were. Okay. So could you just introduce yourself? Tell everyone what you do, where you're from. It feels like blind date, doesn't it?
Well,
But
yeah, so I'm Kelly, Kelly Nicholl, and I'm from Yorkshire. I am head of health and safety and environmental sustainability for Doncaster Culture and Leisure Trust. But most of your listeners are probably going to know me as the current IOSH president.
oh,
Mm.
tell me more. How's it going? It's been a while.
It has, and I'm coming to I'm kind of coming to the kind of final bend now. But it has been absolutely amazing. It has tested me in ways that I wasn't expecting. But it has been a phenomenal opportunity and an absolutely brilliant year. There's been some difficulties, there's been some challenges. But I think one of the greatest things that it's taught me I am literally starting to reflect now, which is really weird, with like 3 months to go, is just how resilient I am and how much I can carry and deal and still get up and put a smile on my face, and be really grateful for what I'm doing.
You're buzzing, aren't you?
I am. I honestly, if I could, I've said this almost all the way through. If I could do this as a job, like I would be, it would be my perfect job. Like it would be absolutely my dream job.
What are your themes been, Kelly? Because
So
obviously, bit of insight there from IOSH. The president
absolutely,
always has a couple of themes that they're going
yeah.
on, he or she.
So one of my themes was around coaching skills and how we add that as a profession, how we add those to our toolkit. We talk an awful lot about mentoring, but actually coaching is one of those kind of real skills that I think needs to be added. So we focused a little bit on that. We've focused on working at height. We've just set up IOSH have just done a new campaign that will outlast my presidency called Don't Fall Silent, which is all around falls from height and us trying to prevent the horrific number of people across the world who die from falls or have life-changing injuries. And then my final theme is around mental health for professionals. So how we as health and safety professionals look after ourselves. You know, an awful lot of us have well-being and mental health in our job titles now. A lot of us are having arguments with HR about whether mental health and well-being sits with HR or sits with health and safety. I would suggest the health bit in health and safety makes it pretty obvious. Um, I also concede that, you know, working together and sharing the load of that is really important. But actually, one of the things that we don't ever really talk about that much is how we look after ourselves as professionals. So, you know, you're an ex-inspector. You know, we've probably seen our fair share of traumatic things. We've had to deal with witnesses and families and friends who have, you know, who want answers and are demanding things from us that we don't necessarily know yet. And I've walked into a hospital after a member of staff was really seriously injured after a fall, and his 6'4" dad was just jabbing his finger in my chest, going, "You're representing this business. I want to know what's going on with my son. I want to know whose fault it is." And I was, you know, not quite as resilient as I am now, and that has very much stayed like that. Things like that stay with us, and so it's how we look after ourselves when we spend so much time looking after everybody else.
Yeah, and that's one of the brilliant things I think, obviously about your presidency as well as the falls from heights. Um, in the course of 25 years, I've been to a few falls, and
Mm,
some have been fatals, and obviously, and not from
nothing
very
very
far
high.
heights.
Yeah.
In fact, I went to one which was 3 feet, fell
Wow.
backwards. So yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And so the point being is, it doesn't have to be 12 foot. If the,
No.
you know, if there's no sort of safety measure when people are climbing,
Mm,
it can have a direct impact. I remember when the 3 points of contact that you get.
yeah.
Yeah, HSE developed those after a fatal accident occurred, where someone was installing on the side of a house. But it's simple little things that you can sometimes do that can make a difference. And yeah, so it's interesting to think that was nearly 28 years ago.
Wow.
Oh, no. Yes, I think the looking after ourselves thing, that's an interesting conversation, isn't it? So, what
Mm.
do you think then? If we're looking at health and safety professionals that we are, how good are we at looking after ourselves when it comes to our mental health?
I, well, I can probably only talk from my personal experience, but I previously have been awful at it.
Yeah.
Really awful. And even when I became a I went and got training and became a mental health first aider. I know that that's quite controversial in some aspects, and then became a mental health first aid instructor and trained an awful lot of people in mental health awareness, mental health first aid, the importance of talking about what's going on for us. Um, but what then ended up happening was everybody came to me, and I it's one of the greatest honors, I think. It's incredibly humbling and incredibly wonderful that people feel comfortable and safe enough to be able to come to you and talk about something that is really troubling them or bothering them, or something that they've probably not, or thoughts that they're having or whatever that they probably haven't spoken about before. And I've always been very open about sharing my experiences of quite poor mental health previously. Um, and I think that probably resonated with an awful lot of people. And but what ended up happening was, because everybody was coming to me, I didn't feel like I had anywhere to go. And ironically, I set up a debrief. So MHFA have their little acronym to help remind first aiders what to do. The bit that was always missing was actually going and getting a bit of self-care, or going and debriefing with somebody and going and checking in and making sure that you were okay after whatever conversation you'd had. And I just took it all on. And during COVID, I burnt out really badly. I was living and working. I was working in my lounge, which was I think it was about 10 paces away from my bedroom. Um, I got up every morning. I walked straight to my desk, and I mean literally walked straight to my desk, would sit there until somebody brought me food at lunchtime. Um, and I would sit there until somebody came home. And I would stop for the 6 o'clock Prime Minister briefing, and then usually have to go back to my desk because something else had changed over the course of that announcement. And I wasn't sleeping. Um, my mum and my dad, my best friend, were all extremely vulnerable, all immunosuppressed. So, trying to make sure that they were looked after. My sister had just had a baby, so selfishly, I was very pleased she wasn't working in a hospital. But she was struggling, and I couldn't get to her. And yeah, it was an incredibly lonely time. Um, and I very much burnt out, and actually became um for the first time in a very, very long time, I started self-harming as a way to cope. And it got to the point where I was recognizing signs in myself, um, that I was heading down a very, very dark path and was starting to was starting to become quite suicidal actually. Um, and when our wonderful Prime Minister announced, I think it was our fourth lockdown down south. I was down south at the time. Um, I turned around to my other half and basically said something needs to change. I'm not, I can't do it. I can't do this on my own. I don't think I'm going to be here. Um, so we got a dog, which sounds really ridiculous, but I got a dog, as I think an awful lot of people did during COVID. And the deal was
A very expensive dog during COVID.
a very expensive dog during COVID. No, I got a retired greyhound.
I love
Um,
that.
Fabulous, yeah. And basically the deal was he had to eat, but I had to eat before him. So I was then eating, and I had to go for a stupid walk for my stupid dog, irrelevant of, the weather. So I went for a stupid walk for my stupid mental health every day. And as annoying and as simple as that is, like it's so annoying just moving your body and getting out in green and nature and feeling the rain and the wind on your face, and then weirdly having people pull over their vehicles to stop and tell you that they also have a greyhound and that they are amazing. And having those little bits and those little connections started to bring the colour back. Um, and yeah, so I basically I've had lots of dogs in my life, and I basically say I've never had a favourite, but Sausage, that's his name. Sausage saved my life, and
Yeah,
yeah, but
nice.
now it's that thing of I can't relate to that feeling anymore. Do you know what I mean? Like it's been 4 years, it's been, 4.5 years now, and I can't relate to that feeling. And I do sit there with a huge amount of kind of gratitude of like if I had decided that I couldn't deal anymore and had made a very final decision about very impermanent and non-final a non-final situation, like I wouldn't be sitting here. I wouldn't have been, do you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't have gone to Samoa, or I wouldn't have been. I went to Japan last
Yeah.
month. Like,
I was there a couple of months ago.
were you?
It's amazing,
Oh
isn't it?
God, it's phenomenal. It's absolutely phenomenal. So I managed to get my final day. Me and Dee Arp and Vanessa from IOSH, we went to Kyoto, and we ended up accident yeah, we ended up accidentally walking Mount Inari, which is like huge and has, yeah, like this, in a pair of sandals because we weren't planning on doing it. We were going to go and feed the monkeys. And thousands of those torii gates, and just how beautiful and peaceful and like just phenomenally respectful the whole experience was. And yeah, got to the top with Dee and just sat there and didn't say anything for probably about 15, 20 minutes because it was just that, like, how lucky am I to be here in all senses of that. And I think that's the thing is it's very much that. I think what's shifted over the past year or so is that very much practicing gratitude. I can sit and
Yeah.
focus on all those negatives and all the reasons why it's been a hard year, but actually I can sit and be incredibly grateful for the opportunities that I've had, for the things that I've been exposed to, and also for the lesson of like just how incredibly resilient I am as a human being.
Yeah, exactly. And and you can look back over the last, it's 5 years since the start
Yeah.
of lockdown, and you can look back and know the position you're in now through those life experiences and through things. For myself, I was living in a house on my own, still living in a house on my own,
Mm.
and I fed birds. I used to feed the birds, and
Yeah.
Penny and Paul the pigeon, and Mick the magpie, and Sammy the squirrel,
Yeah.
and Freddie the Finch. And I kid you not, and I'm fairly certain that they were there, that it was the same ones that came into my garden and they made it into my podcast. I
Mm.
found it interesting. Here I was, like, supporting people during lockdown, and I was very isolated, very alone, and I hadn't had
Yeah.
touch. No one had hugged me for 18 months. And I remember the first time I got hugged, and
Oh,
yeah, and I just like I was embraced by this person,
mm.
my mate, and I said to him, "Look, can you not let go of
Yeah.
just because I just need to know that feeling again."
Mm.
As health and safety professionals, we're often dealing with other people's problems, but the
Yeah.
honesty with which you approach yourself is really important. The self care doesn't always come in, doesn't it?
No.
It's actually, I'll be okay because I've really got this big problem here,
Yeah.
but not realizing. But the beautiful thing, Kelly, is about the openness, about talking where you've been, where you've come from, and how it made you feel. Because I mean, that for me is about being real, isn't it? That's why the company's
Mm.
here, being
Yeah.
real on workplace mental health solutions. And when you talk to your colleagues
Mm.
now in your presidential capacity and that. Um, do you, has there been a shift change, you think, in some of the people? Because I know traditionally, well, we don't talk about that, do we now? But you
Yeah.
are you do live up in Doncaster, so
Mm.
you know how to tell people what they need to know. But
Yeah. I think there is a shift. Certainly, within the presidential team, I remember sitting down for the first time with them and going, these are my themes and these are the kind of things that I want to talk about across this year. And, I three of us have been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, either from previous lives, so previous occupations that we've held, or through significant incidents that we've had to deal with. Um, and we sat and we talked about it. And this idea emerged really quite quickly about while we're sitting here talking about it, like we should be talking about this to an audience. So we did it. We sat down and did a fireside chat at Birmingham at the NEC, um, where um, all three of us talked through our experience and what that was like. And the audience, like it was standing room only. It was standing room only, and the audience were really, really moved. And I rem I remember sitting there and listening to Doc and Gary talk and just feeling incredibly sad that we sit and we hold all of this in and we feel
mm,
because essentially the recurring theme throughout all of them was this incredible sense of guilt and responsibility that we had claimed this level of like it's my fault that this happened or I am partly responsible for this happening. Um, and actually, but being able to talk about it very much brought us closer together as a as a group. But also this recognition that we are definitely not the only people in our profession that are impacted by what we've seen, what we've had to deal with. And just by having that conversation has hopefully meant, well, in fact, it has, it's meant that more people are more open. There's other health and safety professionals that have come to me and told me about the incident that still, wakes them up at night and all of that kind of stuff. And I've spoken at various conferences around mental health, and the story shifts. The story I tell shifts every time because it's entirely dependent on how I'm feeling and what I want to talk about that day. Um,
Yeah.
because I think it's important to recognize that fundamentally we're all human beings and we're all, particularly in this profession, we're all desperately trying to keep everybody, get everybody home at the end of the day. And, you'll see on LinkedIn that there's people who are very aggressively negative, and are quite um I'm incredibly critical. And I can take criticism. Do you know what I mean? Like I can absolutely take criticism. You want to criticize me? That's not a problem. I'm a big
Bring it,
girl.
bring,
Yeah,
bring it
bring it
on.
on. But if you're going to insult me, if you're going to attack me as an individual, I think my favorite insult this year is that I'm office plankton and I've never touched a harness or a rope in my entire life. So what what on earth what on earth gives me the right to be able to be talking about working at height? And I'm like, just go and like at least do your research. Do you know what I mean? Like if you and it really impacted me for a while. And like I think I said it in another podcast, like you can criticize IOSH, you can criticize the presidential team about not focusing on things that you think are important and all of that. But I think fundamentally you've got to remember that, and I think this is good for all of us actually, we're all human beings. When it comes to the IOSH stuff, like I am a volunteer, like I have a day job, I have a family. This is on top. Do you know what I mean? Like I sacrifice time, annual leave, breaks, holiday, to represent this institution that I really love and I'm really passionate about. And um, but I'm a human being. I have a dad who is. I feel like I'm trauma dumping on you, Peter. I have a dad who
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
I have a dad who has stage 4 prostate cancer. And is still on we're back in that really joyful. Every three
yeah.
months you get a rescan and a retest, and has it come back? And so we're back in that kind of waiting period now, which is awful because you ignore it. You get to ignore it for about 2.5 months, and then it starts to come back. And that worry of whether it's going to be this time that we get told that it's back, and well, I mean, it's still there, but it's really back, and there's not much more they can do, and we're on considerably limited time. I have a mum who fell over on a slipped on a wet leaf and broke her arm so badly she now has complex regional pain syndrome and is essentially disabled from a slip on a leaf. Um, I have work colleagues that are struggling and all of that kind of stuff. And I genuinely sit there sometimes and go, have you got nothing better to do than insult this girl from Doncaster who's decided to stick her head above the parapet and go, yeah, I'll do that. That looks like fun. Um,
Donny, not Doncaster, it's Donny, isn't it?
it's always Donny. Yeah. It does make me laugh. We've got an advert out at the minute, and whoever did the voiceover says Doncaster, and I'm like, where is that? There's no R's in Doncaster. Like with your flat A's all the way all the way through.
No, I think the moment, Kelly, the moment you put yourself in the front line and actually stick up for something that you believe in, that people are going to try and shoot you down. And I mean, I've had interactions with people, and some of those you just go, oh, yeah, obviously you're not allowed to swear on your own podcast, but sometimes you just want to go, just leave it out. But ultimately, me, you, and many of us in this profession have seen things. And the
Mm,
reason we do what we do is because we don't want to have to see them again. We
yeah,
don't want to have to sit down with the family to
yeah,
talk through the way an incident's gone. And one of the reasons I'm so passionate about mental health is throughout my career, where we've always been going, let's do semiconductors, let's do asbestos, let's do
mm,
Folsom Heights, let's do silica. And we throw ourselves into the safety
Yeah.
outside of our world, and then we go, oh, it's okay. No, let's not do mental health.
Yeah.
Um, you know what I mean? Let's not do mental health because that's too hard. It's all about individuals, And remember this, that many people that have gotten into an accident may have been distracted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello. So, but
Yeah.
if safety is your thing, remember it's actually down to mental health.
Mm.
And I don't think your honesty and your empathy and the way you talk is really, really important. We, as health and safety professionals, have to be that to the people that we're with. So when you
Mm.
talk about your family, we are family. For
Yeah.
example, my dad, I got 11 weeks because it was a stage 4 tumor,
Mm.
and everything had to be condensed. But within
Yeah.
that 11 weeks, there were some moments where we laughed. I bought him a wheelchair and I forgot to pump the tire up. So, I was, so I'm pushing this wheelchair up to the park. And I said,
Yeah.
bloody hell, Dad, this is really hard. Anyway, this lady came out, said, oh, your tires are flat. I said, "Oh, I said, I thought they were run flats. I thought they were just like, you didn't need to
Yeah.
put any air in anyway. So she ran off to her house and got this electric pump and pumped up the tires of my dad's wheelchair. And after it was done, my dad said, come here. And I leant down and he went, Little Britain. And and we giggled. We just giggled. We giggled and I said, Dad, it's now I'm taking you around the park rather than you taking me around the park. But yeah, so I was doing really well by getting him this wheelchair. But yeah, that honesty and that genuine and that beautifulness that you've got this period of time where you can make memories, and I think
Mm.
that's really really important. And I know when we've sat down with people and we talk about this, try and when people have had an injury which is life changing, then that actually you have to sit with the family and and with the individual and try and support, and you do become connected to it. It's
Of course
it,
you do.
you can't, and then as you said, three of you through PTSD, and it's not uncommon, but it's an untalked about thing
Yeah.
in our profession, which is we're not superheroes and robots. We're actually humans, and we do take that on. And I know in the when emergency services that people recognise that now with the ambulance service providing peer-to-peer support. I'm going to talk to you about that. That is so important, isn't it?
Mm.
Informal and formal. Would you agree?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's the thing is, you see an awful lot of, where's the evidence that like mental health first aiders work, and where because the suicide rate isn't coming down, and there's still so much more, there's much more demand, and for NHS and mental health services, and you go, well, yeah, but mental health first aid was never the solution. It's part of the solution. And I think that's the thing is it has to be part of a wider program. I mean, here in the UK, we know that if you go to your doctor, if you go to your GP and you go, I'm struggling, I need somebody to talk to, realistically, you're waiting 12, 18, 24 months to talk to somebody. And that's like 2 years down the line is not when I need the help. I need the help now. So actually, our workplaces become really, really key in keeping us well and keeping us healthy. So our colleagues being able to turn around and go, "Hey, I've noticed this. Are you okay?" Our management, our line managers being able and having the toolkit and the capacity and the capability to be able to go, "Hey, your performance has shifted. Something's not okay." And that could be, I've noticed you're coming in early and you're leaving much later and you're not taking breaks. What's going on? Rather than going, oh, this person's just increased their productivity. Maybe they're trying to distract themselves from something. Or normally you rock up and you look, you've got your full face of makeup on, you've got your hair up, you've got your hair done and all of that. It's noticing those changes before they become real big problems and creating a culture where you can turn around and go, can I grab a coffee? I need a chat. I need to vent. And it doesn't have to be something work related. It can be something that's just sat on your brain. And being able to create this environment where people are empathetic and people genuinely listen and genuinely care about each other. Like an awful lot of the time, people just want to vent. People just want to be listened to. And actually, if you've got people that have got the capability to be able to do that, like we stop it there. Do you know what I mean? Like sometimes it's just that conversation. There are other times where it's actually there's something much bigger going on, and I need much, people need much more formalized help and support. But having, it's one of the first things that I did when I joined DCLT was I created a list of local and national support. So that actually, and it's there on our SharePoint. Nobody has to come and ask for it, but it's there. So you've got all the local numbers, you've got all the local addresses. So if you want to pop in somewhere, you can. You've got all the national stuff. Um, and and it's just recognizing that actually we've all got so much. We've all got so much. I have intentionally, I used to watch the news religiously. I've become intentionally ignorant. I've stopped watching the news because I I can't this is yeah, I can't cope with watching women and children in huge amounts of distress in other parts of the world where I am. I can't do anything about it. I'm a health and safety professional. I want to save everybody. Do you know what I mean? Like I want to help everybody. I can't do anything. I can't do anything for my queer family in America. My heart breaks for them every single day, and I can't do anything for them other than, try and invite some of them over here and all of that kind of stuff. Like I can't do anything. I can't control it. So I have intentionally switched off from it. And actually that decision has made me much happier. I
Yeah.
still, pay attention to what's going on in the world, but it has made me much happier. And I think sometimes it's that ability for us to connect on a human level. Everybody used to think that we had to have this workplace persona that, was like a swan, like everything's fine and there is no emotion um and actually that's not I can't do it. Like I fundamentally can't do it. I've never been able to do it. And what's been really nice is that as people more people have seen that I can't do it, as people realize that actually they don't have to and
Yeah.
bring more of themselves into work. We spend so much of our time at work, so much of our waking lives at work. Why would you only bring part of yourself there? And I remember walking in a couple of days after, like I'd messaged my boss, Michael, who is a phenomenal line manager, genuinely one of the best I've ever had in my career. Because I messaged him and said, my dad's just been diagnosed. I'm not even, I can literally went, I'm not even sure I can type it. Dad's just been diagnosed with stage 4 prostate cancer. We don't like, I don't think I can come in. Like, I don't think I can. And he's like, do you want me to call you? And I'm like, no, I wouldn't be able to talk. And he called me anyway. And he's like, we'll just sit here for 5 minutes. It's fine. Like, you don't actually need to say anything. And I sobbed down the phone at him,
That
stopped.
that
Mm,
yeah. But that's being a
yeah.
good boss, isn't it? And what
Yeah.
did that take? A bit of a human emotion and a
Mm,
bit of life experience. I had the same
no,
thing.
yeah.
When I actually actually phoned my boss.
Yeah.
So, he did exactly the same thing. And because, phenomenally good boss as Rob, and they actually came to my dad's funeral with my couple of my work colleagues. So,
Mhm.
yeah. Anyway,
We've both got very choked just then, haven't we?
we
But it
did.
is
Yeah,
because and actually, what's funny about that, isn't it? Is it's actually the thing that's made us both really emotional is the kindness of other people.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I mean, you mentioned about your American family,
Mm.
um, and obviously you have some thoughts on things that are going on. I mean, how do you each support each other?
Um, so one of the things that we've done is we've disassociated. Like we completely disassociate. So now even though they're living it, we talk about America as if it's a television show because it's a hell of a lot easier. Because it's like it just oh, season 7 of America is like proper jump the shark. Like what on earth is going on here? Because it's easier. We talk about one of the things that we do is we find glimmers. There's this thing that Mr. Rogers used to say, so be my the neighbor guy, used to
Yeah,
say, and it was when things are really dark or when something really awful is happening, look for the helpers. So look for the people that are running in rather than running away. Look for the people who are running to help. And we've started calling it glimmers. So look for the glimmers. Look for those little tiny moments of joy. So when so for anybody that isn't aware, Pulse nightclub was a gay nightclub in Florida, in Orlando, um, as one of the worst mass shootings in America. Certainly one of the most tragic for the queer community. An awful lot of us have got a little pulse rainbow tattoo, which we got to raise money for victims and their families. A few weeks ago, there was a rainbow zebra crossing, pedestrian crossing, whatever it is they call them over there. We call them zebras, and it was painted over. It was painted back over in black, back into black and white. Um, and it sat there as black and white for a few days, and then the entire community came out, made an absolute massive party of it, and repainted it. Repainted it into rainbow, and we'll continue to do that every time it gets painted back over. Um, and it's those things. It's looking for your pigeons and your Freddie the Finch and
yes,
all of
yeah,
those. It's desperately clinging on to those little moments of joy because they are there. And the more that we look for them, the more that we see them. And the more that you see them, the more that the more you notice the good in the world rather than always noticing the negative, and it shifts your mindset. Um, it really does. And I could sit and cry every day about the idea of losing my dad. And some days I do. Um, but then I've had to shift my thinking in it and go, how lucky am I that I know I have limited time?
yeah,
And I know we all know that we have limited time, but actually, I know that there is an absolute time limit. I think all of us I certainly think, have always felt that my dad was immortal and would never get old and never be frail
yeah.
and it would always be there. But how lucky am I that I get the opportunity to ask him questions and ask him about his life, and hopefully he doesn't listen to this, but secretly record him as well, so I have his voice.
Yes, I did that. So I
Yeah.
recorded I recorded my dad's voice off his answer phone,
Mm,
and then right until about a few days before he passed, I said, "Dad, tell me the stories."
yeah.
I know the stories inside out. I use some of the stories when I'm talking,
Yeah.
but it was the way he just lit up when he was
Yeah.
talking about the stories, and I think that's really important. And one of the, you know, from we've talked with previously, but Dad asked me about 6 years ago. He said, "What do you do, son? Don't have any idea what you do." I said, "Dad, I'm a health and safety inspector, but I specialise in looking after people's mental health." And he said, "It's a beautiful thing." And this is why he said, "Why aren't people being real about their mental health?" Like,
Mm.
and I went, "Do you know what?" So this is why the company, it is what it is. It's because of that legacy. But you're an exceptional example of what being real is, and actually we shouldn't ever back away from being genuine, and because I think that's what people do. I mean, this is a gift. I'm going to bring Churchill in, but this is from my dad, and
Mm.
he said, I'll just give you Churchill. I craved this thing for years, yeah, and then
Yeah.
about 6 years ago, he went in lockdown. He gave me this dog,
Mm.
and he said, "Just shake its head, son, and everything's going to be all right."
Yeah.
So small little things like that, but yet that genuineness and realness, and the fact you're so open, prepared to talk about things is what we're about, aren't we?
Well,
Because
look,
if we can
not
change the
talking,
narrative,
yeah, not talking about it ain't doing anybody any good, is it? Like
yeah,
literally not talking about it. And it's something like, was it like the 1980s? Cancer was a dirty word. Like people didn't die of cancer. They died of
yeah,
other things because cancer was a dirty word. Um, certainly, and now people die by suicide or die from depression, and we are
yeah,
starting to change their conversation, or they've lost their battle with their mental health. Um, and we are starting to nudge the dial. My I think my biggest concern at the minute is we're desperately, people like you, me, and there's lots of others who are desperately trying to nudge the dial around, particularly men, particularly young men. In fact, any man, you know, suicide is the biggest killer of anybody and any man under the age of 50. There's another peak around retirement age because a lot of men lose their identity about who they are, because so much of who they are is in what they do, and they lose that. And we don't talk about it. And as we're trying to nudge the dial over here, there's this rise of this kind of embracement of like real embracement of toxic masculinity and the definition of what it is to be a man, and this perception of you don't talk about your emotions, you don't, you go to the gym and you do, all of these very stereotypical things. And most of the time there are an awful lot of men that I know, mostly straight men, but there are an awful lot of men that I know who the only time that they get hugged is when they're watching football and their team scores. It's the only time that they are touched by another human being. And I can't fathom that. Like we are we are supposed to be communities. We are supposed to be together. This isolationism, which is obviously really easy for me to say, this isolationism, like it's not what we're designed for. Like, and I don't
yeah,
get it. And if it means if it means me sitting and exposing myself emotionally or going, hey, there's a reason why I have a semicolon on my wrist, and if you don't know, go and look up the semicolon project. But if you don't know,
yeah,
come and ask me, and if you do know, you can come and talk to me.
yeah,
Um, like we need to do something different.
yeah.
And it takes
And
it takes us being icky and scared of, crying in front of other people, getting choked up and all of that. It takes some of us to be able to do that and lead loudly from this perspective in order for other people to see it.
and
Um,
you and
yeah.
you, Kelly. leading loudly during your presidential year and your vice presidential year, your past presidential year as well. Thank you for coming on and having it. I knew, Kelly, the moment you said yes, I thought we're going to have an absolute cracker. And and let's be unapologetic about being real, huh? And because you are an awesome example of what we are about. We're going to be real on mental health, and we're going to talk about life. And and if there are people out there who want to have a go, which they do, and want to have a go sounds simple, doesn't it? Then they're going to do that. But thank you, Kelly, for coming on. And
thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to tell you, you can all go on YouTube, got a YouTube channel, on Spotify to hear the recording and let's get together on our mission about being real, about being there for people, and I thank you very much. And that is it. Right. Now I've got to work out how I stop a recording. So my content person is going to go, oh, stop recording.
Just stop it, yeah.
My contact person